أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، والصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد. أما بعد، فقد قال أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام في خطبة له: ألا ترون أن الله سبحانه اختبر الأولين من لدن آدم عليه السلام إلى الآخرين من هذا العالم بأحجار لا تضر ولا تنفع ولا تبصر ولا تسمع، فجعلها بيته الحرام الذي جعله الله للناس قياما، ثم وضعه بأوعر بقاع الأرض حجرا، وأقل نتائق الدنيا مدرا، وأضيق بطون الأودية قطرا، بين جبال خشنة ورمال دمثة وعيون وشلة وقرى منقطعة لا يزكو بها خف ولا حافر ولا ظلف. ثم أمر آدم عليه السلام وولده أن يثنوا أعطافهم نحوه، فصار مثابة لمنتجع أسفارهم وغاية لملقى رحالهم، تهوي إليه ثمار الأفئدة من مفاوز قفار سحيقة ومهاوي فجاج عميقة وجزائر بحار منقطعة، حتى يهزوا مناكبهم ذللا يهللون لله حوله ويرملون على أقدامهم شعثا غبرا له. قد نبذوا السرابيل وراء ظهورهم وشوهوا بإعفاء الشعور محاسن خلقهم، ابتلاء عظيما وامتحانا شديدا واختبارا مبينا وتمحيصا بليغا، جعله الله سببا لرحمته ووصلة إلى جنته. ولو أراد سبحانه أن يضع بيته الحرام ومشاعره العظام بين جنات وأنهار وسهل وقرار، جم الأشجار، دان الثمار، ملتف البنى، متصل القرى، بين برة السمراء وروضة خضراء وأرياف محدقة وعراس مغدقة وزروع ناضرة وطرق عامرة، لكان قد صغر قدر الجزاء على حسب ضعف البلاء. ولو كان الإساس المحمول عليها والأحجار المرفوع بها بين زمردة خضراء وياقوتة حمراء ونور وضياء لخفف ذلك مصارعة الشك في الصدور ولوضع مجاهدة إبليس عن القلوب ولنفى معتلج الريب من الناس ولكن الله يختبر عباده بأنواع الشدائد ويتعبدهم بأنواع المجاهد ويبتليهم بضروب المكاره إخراجا للتكبر من قلوبهم وإسكانا للتذلل في نفوسهم وليجعل ذلك أبوابا فتحا إلى فضله وأسبابا ظللا لعفوه. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. We are continuing the very beautiful khutbah of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, which is known as al-Khutbatul Qasi'ah. And in this part of the khutbah, the Imam alayhi salam is talking about a very interesting aspect of our religion. We summarize this part before going into the depth of it, inshaAllah. First, the Imam says that Allah Azzawajal tests human beings through stones, and He has always tested them using stones in this world from the time of Adam alayhi salam. And with the very stones that He has created, He commanded that His house should be built, meaning the holy Kaaba should be built. So the first thing is that Allah tests human beings with these stones, and He commanded that they should build His house with these stones. جعلها بيته الحرام الذي جعله الله للناس قياما. Allah commanded that they should use these stones to make His holy house, meaning the Kaaba, from the very beginning. That is point number one. The second point is, not only did He command that His house should be built, but He commanded that it should be built in a place which is very hostile in its environment, meaning that it's a very dry place. It is a place where there are rocky mountains, there is hardly any water, the weather is not favorable. In fact, the way the Imam describes it is so beautiful. He says, بَيْنَ جِبَالٍ خَشِنَةٍ وَرِمَالٍ دَمِثَةٍ وَعُيُونٍ وَشِلَةٍ. Between rocky mountains and dry, sandy desert, a place where water is very scarce, very rare to find water, very difficult to find water. And that is where He commanded that now His house should be built. It is very interesting that one of the commentators of Nahjul Balagha, Ayatollah Makarim Shirazi in Qom, he says that until very recently it was difficult to access the holy Kaaba, to get to Mecca, because of these rocky mountains that surround it. But recently they have built tunnels through the mountains. Those who go to Mecca, they will find now they have built tunnels through the mountains, so it is more accessible. And before there were no trees to be seen, but they brought soil from other parts of the world and they planted trees. So now you will see some trees there and it is accessible. So Allah commanded that His house should be built of stone, number one. Number two, that it should be built in such a hostile place. The third thing that Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam addresses in this part of the khutbah, he says, is the importance of Hajj. He describes that now that the house was built, Allah commanded that people should go to His house for Hajj. And the Imam describes Hajj in a very beautiful way. And that not only does he describe the Hajj, after that he says this Hajj is a great test from Allah Azzawajal. He says it is ibtila'an 'azima wa imtihanan shadida wa ikhtibaran mubina. All these three words in Arabic mean test. When you say ibtila, you mean test. Imtihan is also test. Ikhtibar is also test. So the Imam is repeating this to show how difficult a test Hajj is. And then in the end he says, وَتَمْحِيصًا بَلِغًا, and it is a means of purifying yourself. So the purification is mentioned only once, but the test part of it is mentioned 3 times. Hajj is a very difficult test. That is point number 3. And the final point in summarizing this khutbah, this part of the khutbah, the Imam says, if Allah wanted, He could have placed His house in a place where there were lush meadows and beautiful gardens with water, streams running, and a place with favorable climate. Not only that, He could have built His house, the Kaaba, of emeralds and rubies, and that would have made it much easier. But then he says, if that would have been done, then لَكَانَ قَدْ صَغَّرَ قَدْرَ الْجَزَاءِ عَلَى حَسَبِ مَا ضَعَّفَ الْبَلَاءِ. If that would have happened, then the jaza, the reward for Hajj, would have been greatly reduced. Why? Because the test would have become much easier. If you are told to go for Hajj and it is a very beautiful place, everybody would go. Easily accessible, everybody would go. A place where there are gardens and meadows, not only would you would go and want to stay there. And if the Kaaba was made of these rubies and gems and emeralds, people would love to go there. But this was not the case. Why? Because the harder the test, the more the ajr, the greater the thawab. That is what he is saying in this part of the khutbah. Now, let us begin by first looking at the history of the Kaaba, because the Imam is talking about the Kaaba. When we look at the Kaaba, we know that the holy Kaaba was the first house of Allah Azzawajal to be built on earth. In the Quran we read, إِنَّ أَوَّلَ بَيْتٍ وُضِعَ لِلنَّاسِ لَلَّذِي بِبَكَّةَ مُبَارَكًا وَهُدًى لِلْعَالَمِينَ. Indeed, the first house of Allah to be built on earth for the people to visit, to pray to Allah, to worship Allah, was in Bakka. Bakka is the old name for Makkah. And that is the place where Allah commanded. And so, many of the Mufassirin say that the first person to build the Kaaba was Adam alayhi salam. Because it is the first house of worship, therefore they say that it was Adam alayhi salam who built this house first. But later we know, of course, the riwayat are numerous and they are different. Some say Adam alayhi salam was the first person to build the Kaaba. Some say it was Sheeth, his son, Sheeth alayhi salam was the next prophet. He was the one who built the Kaaba. But what we know from our history was that after the Kaaba had initially been built, it was built by Ibrahim alayhi salam. Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, as the verse of the Quran clearly tells us, وَيَرْفَعُ إِبْرَاهِيمُ الْقَوَاعِدَ مِنَ الْبَيْتِ وَإِسْمَاعِيلُ رَبَّنَا تَقَبَّلْ مِنَّا إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ. Ibrahim alayhi salam raised the walls of the Kaaba with his son Ismail. And then they prayed to Allah, may Allah accept our endeavor. And we know the history of how this happened, that initially Ibrahim alayhi salam was not getting children. And his wife Sarah, he and his wife were not getting children. So his wife Sarah told him that I have a slave girl, Hajra, why don't you marry her? Maybe Allah will bless us with a child. And so Ibrahim alayhi salam marries Hajra. And with Hajra, he gets Ismail, he gets a child. But when the child is born, it evokes a sense of jealousy in Sarah. This is there in the riwayat. Obviously, this is natural. She cannot bear children, and Hajra bore a child. So she complains to Ibrahim alayhi salam, and she makes him promise that he will take Hajra and the baby to a distant land, far away. And his condition was, you will go and you will leave them there. You will not even disembark from your camel or your horse. You will not come down from your horse. You will leave them there and you will come back. And so Ibrahim alayhi salam takes Hajra and Ismail, the baby, and he takes them to what is now the precincts of Mecca, of Masjidul Haram, that area. And he leaves them there. And he prays to Allah, "Oh Allah, I have brought them here. You are the only one who can take care of them. Please care for them." He leaves them and he goes back. But there's a lot of discussion. We don't want to get into it here. We were talking about the Holy Kaaba. And we know obviously that Ismail was a newborn baby at the time, very young child. And when the thirst became too difficult to bear, Hajra went looking for water. And she ran from Safa to Marwa, these two mountains, these two small mountains, on top of Safa, on top of Marwa 7 times, until Allah Azzawajal blessed them with Zamzam under the feet of Ismail alayhi salam. And that is why we, until today, we run 7 times following the sunnah of Hajra. And we drink from Zamzam that came under the feet of Ismail alayhi salam. And later on, Ibrahim would visit, because his family is there, he would visit. And when he came to visit one time in the future, that is when he and his son Ismail, who was now older, they built the Kaaba. They built the walls of the Kaaba. Of course, at that time, the height of the Kaaba was approximately the height of a human being. And it did not have a roof. And then later onwards, this was as far as building the Kaaba is concerned. But later onwards, the Kaaba has been rebuilt many times. Before the time of Rasulullah Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, different tribes, the tribe of Jarham rebuilt the Kaaba, the Amalika rebuilt the Kaaba, the great grandfather of Rasulullah, whose name was Qais, he also rebuilt the Kaaba, and it is said he is the one who first built a roof for the Kaaba. And he increased the height of the Kaaba. That was Qais, the great grandfather of the Holy Prophet. But during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad, the Kaaba was rebuilt again, because 2 reasons have been given. One is there was flooding, and due to the flooding the Kaaba had been destroyed, part of it had been destroyed, so the Quraysh had to rebuild it. That is one reason given. Another reason in history that's given is there was a fire, it caught fire. A lady had come with some incense, with some oud near the Kaaba, and it caught fire and it got destroyed, part of it, and so they had to rebuild it. This is during the lifetime of the Prophet. Before he had got his prophetic mission, he was still a young man, the Prophet at that time. Of course, the ulama debate, they say no, this was not because of a fire. They only brought about this issue of fire because they wanted to cover up the sins of the Bani Umayyah who had burnt the Kaaba later on. The true reason is that it was a flooding that caused the Kaaba to be destroyed. Whatever the case, the Kaaba was destroyed, and the Quraysh came together and they wanted to rebuild the Kaaba. And they started rebuilding it. They were all proud to have a part in building the Kaaba and rebuilding it. Once they had rebuilt it, now they wanted to put the Hajarul Aswad, the black stone. And of course, now we are looking at the Jahili Arabs with their ta'assub, with their arrogance. Each tribe says, no, it is our right to put the Hajarul Aswad. Every tribe came forward and they wanted to put the Hajarul Aswad. Finally, it got so bad that they were about to start a war amongst each other, when they decided that let's do one thing. Let's look at the oldest person amongst us and let us give him the responsibility of deciding what we should do. So they look amongst them, amongst the Quraysh, and they find the oldest person was a man known as Abu Umayyah ibn Mughira. Very old man. And they say, you are the eldest of the Quraysh. We want you to resolve this dispute. Who is going to keep the black stone back in its place? And so Abu Umayyah says, okay, I have decided that the first person who enters from Safa will be the one who passes judgment. So everyone was looking at the door that comes in from Safa. And lo and behold, enters Rasulullah Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. The riwayat tell us at that time he was 35 years old or younger. And when they saw him, everybody started chanting, Al-Amin, 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 because they knew he was trustworthy. They said, yes, we will accept whatever he says. They call him and they say, we have this problem, we can't decide who is going to keep the black stone back in its place. So the Holy Prophet says, bring a piece of cloth. And they bring a piece of cloth and he says, I am placing the black stone in the middle of this cloth. The head of every tribe should lift part of the cloth, part of the edge of the cloth, and together we will take the stone near the Kaaba. And so everybody was happy, they all got a share and they took the black stone near the Kaaba, and the Prophet with his own two hands took the stone and placed it in its place. So the Kaaba was rebuilt also during the time of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Then the Kaaba has been rebuilt after that many times. In 1630 there was a flood and the walls were destroyed and the Ottomans rebuilt the Kaaba. As early as 1996 they had some renovation work done and they rebuilt part of the Kaaba. So the Kaaba has been rebuilt many times. But also when we look at the history of the Kaaba, we find that the Kaaba has also been attacked numerous times. During the time before the birth of Rasulullah, we know that the Kaaba was attacked by Abraha. Everyone knows the story. And Allah protected the Kaaba. But after that also the Kaaba has been attacked. Yazid bin Muawiyah has got many sins. Not only the sin of killing our third Imam, Abu Abdullah al-Husayn alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Which was no doubt his greatest sin. But the next year he also attacked the Kaaba. Because Abdullah ibn Zubayr was there in Mecca and he had established his own independent caliphate in Mecca. And Yazid could not tolerate that. So he sent his army. His army said, but he is in Mecca. He is near the Kaaba. This place is a sanctuary. Even according to the Holy Quran, you cannot attack anyone. You cannot kill anyone. Yazid said, no, you have to attack. And so they used minjaniq, they used catapults with burning rocks which they threw at the Kaaba from outside. And they destroyed part of the Kaaba and they burnt the Kaaba. Yazid. Later onwards, in the 4th century, the year 318 AH, there was a group of Muslims or so-called Muslims, quote unquote, who are known as the Qaramita. Qaramita are actually Ismailis. They had a link with Ismailis. Ismaili belief mixed with Zoroastrian beliefs. It was a heretic sect. They, not only did they attack the Kaaba, history tells us they went into Mecca during the Hajj period. It was time for Salah. They rode in and they killed thousands of people inside the Masjidul Haram, and they dumped their bodies in Zamzam, and they stole Hajarul Aswad, they desecrated the Kaaba and they left. And not only that, they kept Hajarul Aswad for decades, not for 1 year or 2 years, for decades they kept it with them and they held it for ransom, wanting the Abbasi Khulafa to pay them so that they can return the Hajarul Aswad. So for years the Kaaba was without Hajarul Aswad. This is there in the history. And so this is the history of the Kaaba. That's point number one. The second point here we get from this part of the khutbah is about Hajj. The beauty of Hajj. We know that after Ibrahim alayhi salam built the Kaaba, Allah commanded him, he says, وَأَذِّن لِلنَّاسِ بِالْحَجِّ. O Ibrahim, now call to the people, let them come for Hajj. Let them come to visit my house, the Kaaba. وَأَتِمُّ الْحَجَّ وَالْعُمْرَةَ لِلَّهِ. O believers, O Muslims, the Quran tells us, go for Umrah, go for Hajj, for the sake of Allah Azzawajal. So, Hajj is part and parcel of the teachings of Islam. It was there even before the Holy Prophet's time. And in this part of the khutbah, the Imam describes beautifully the rituals of Hajj. He says that this is the place where people go shoulder to shoulder walking around the Kaaba. He describes that. then this is the place where people march swiftly. He's talking about between Safa and Marwa. He says this is the place where people remove their clothes and wear ihram. This is the place where people come with disheveled hair. They have not groomed themselves. It's so beautiful really in Hajj. Not only is there completely no differentiation between any race, ethnicity, level in society, nothing. At the same time, you cannot even apply perfume or groom yourself so somebody can say, oh, this, even though he's wearing ihram, I can tell this person is noble. No, even that is not allowed. That's how beautiful Hajj is. So the Imam describes all these things. And of course, when he's talking about ihram, the best example of what ihram truly means is taught to us by our fourth Imam, Imam Zainul Abidin, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. When the Imam was wearing his ihram, he was weeping and crying and his face had changed color. Everyone had started saying labbaik, labbaik. The Imam was trembling. Somebody came and asked him, Yabna Rasulillah, why aren't you saying labbaik? Why is your tongue stammering? Why is it you cannot speak yet? Why is it that you are trembling? What's happening to you? And he says, I'm afraid that I say labbaik, and Allah replies, la labbaik. There's a riwayah that says there are some people, they go for Hajj, they say labbaik Allahumma labbaik. A reply comes from Allah, la labbaik wa la sa'daik. You are rejected. The Imam Ma'soom, he's trembling, he's saying, I'm afraid. He does then say labbaik, but in that state of wearing the ihram, there is that fear. And that is why in this part of the sermon you find that the Imam has said 3 times that this is a very difficult thing, Hajj. 3 times he says it's very difficult, it's a very difficult test. But those who pass the test, according to our 6th Imam, Imam Jaffer as-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, he says, one who passes the test of Hajj, raja'a min adh-dhunubihi kahay'ati yawma waladathu ummuh. One who performs the Hajj as it is supposed to be performed, when he comes back, it is as if he is newly born, reborn, a newborn child, completely free of sin. Completely free of sin. It is difficult, but if you pass the phases of Hajj, then of course nowadays people make a mockery of Hajj. You look at what happens in Hajj, you find people are doing tawaf and they are chatting on their mobile phones. You find people doing tawaf on these hoverboards, I don't know, segways, I don't know what kind of machine it is. They're just standing and they make a mockery of Hajj. You look at Hajj in the past, how difficult it was. Even 50 years ago, ask somebody who went for Hajj 50 years ago what Hajj was like. And if you want to know even earlier, there are many travelogues. People have written Safarname, it's called in Farsi, Safarname. Travelogues are those historical accounts of people when they travel, they say what they saw and what they experienced. There are some people who have written travelogues about Hajj in the olden days, in the 1600s, in the 1800s. What was Hajj like? And then you realize truly when Amirul Mu'mineen says it was imtihan, it was ikhtibar, it was ibtila, it was very difficult. It was a difficult test. Of course, these days, sometimes some people consider it like a holiday. You go there and everything is prepared for you. But that is not what gives you the true spirit of the Hajj. And while we are talking about the Hajj, we know that Hajj is connected to Shahr Ramadan. There is a connection between Hajj and Shahr Ramadan. Because in almost every dua that we recite in this month, Allahumma arzuqni hajja baytika al-haram fi aami hada wa fi kulli aam. Almost every dua. Oh Allah, grant me Hajj to your blessed house this year and every year. So there is a link between Shahr Ramadan and Hajj. The ulama say that Shahr Ramadan is also a means of preparation for Hajj. That is one possible link between these two. So that is as far as Hajj is concerned. Now the third thing is the difficulty of the test. What does the Imam mean? He gives one example of the difficulty, and he says one of the difficulties, aside from the rituals that you perform, which are difficult, but one of the difficulties that people faced and continue to face until today is the difficulty of doubt. Hajj has so many rituals that people don't understand and they doubt. Why do we have to collect stones from here? Why do we have to throw it on this wall? Why do we have to wear 2 pieces of cloth? So many things people doubt. And that is why when we look at the khutbah that we are looking at now, in the beginning of the khutbah, the Imam said that Allah tests people with بَعْضِ مَا يَجْهَلُونَ, with some things that they don't understand. The test is that you don't understand and you obey. That is the test. Of course, our fourth Imam, Imam Zainul Abidin, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, he has explained, and many of the other Aimma alayhimu salam also have explained the philosophy of the rituals of Hajj. When the Imam talks to Shibli, he explains to Shibli the different marahil, the different stages of Hajj, and what is the philosophy behind Hajj. So this has been explained. But people tend to have doubt in their minds. People tend to think that they should be able to understand everything. Well, that is not the case. We have been given 5 senses. 5 senses with which we can see things, interpret things, understand things, acquire knowledge. But there are many things that our senses, first and foremost, are not perfect. We know that we have 5 senses, they're not perfect. Sometimes people in the desert, they would see water from afar and they would run towards it. And what was it? It was just a mirage. You see water, but it's not water. You get there and you see it was just a mirage in the desert. So your eyes fooled you, your sight fooled you. So our senses are not perfect. Not only that, some things we see, but we don't know what is beneath it, what is under it. For example, if you look at an iceberg, in Antarctica, there are these big, huge icebergs. You look at an iceberg, they say that what you can see of the iceberg above the water is only 10% of the iceberg. Only 15% of the iceberg. 85% is under the water. You can't see that. So when we look at the iceberg, we think, oh, it's only this big. We don't know how big it is under the water. So our senses are not reliable. This is all that we have to acquire knowledge. Yet it is not. That means there is something beyond what our senses can tell. There is something beyond. And how do we know that there is something beyond? There are 3 ways. There are 3 ways. Number 1, through instruments. As science has progressed, they have come up with instruments. For example, the microscope. Before, human beings didn't have a microscope. Now they developed a microscope. And when they looked at their own hands under the microscope, they saw that one human hand has more microbes than the entire population of the earth. One human hand has more microbes. Today, just now look at your hand. Can you see anything? No. Where are the microbes? You could not see it. When the instrument came, it was developed. Now you can see, oh, this is what is there on my hand. So the first way you can see beyond your 5 senses is through instruments. The second way you can know and you can perceive things that are beyond your 5 senses is by looking at the effects of those things. For example, you turn your antenna to a certain direction and you get a picture on your screen. What brought the picture? You can't see anything. You can't perceive anything with your 5 senses. But you know there is something that goes to the antenna that brings a picture on the screen. You look at your mobile phone, you can see there's a signal. Where's the signal coming from? You can't see anything, you can't hear anything, you can't touch anything. But you know that there is something, that is why you're getting a signal. You go under a tunnel, there's no more signal. You come out, there's a signal. There is something that is connecting your phone to the service provider. There is something that is connecting your antenna to the broadcaster. You can't see it with your 5 senses. You can't perceive it with your 5 senses. But the effects can be seen. When you see the effects, you know there is something there. That is number 2. And number 3 is when Allah Azzawajal opens the eyes of his servant's heart because his servant has reached very close to him. إذا أراد الله بعبد خيرا فتح عيني قلبه. When Allah wants good for his servant, he opens the heart's eyes. Your eyes, your hearts also have eyes. And now you can see things that others cannot see, beyond the five senses. So there are things beyond that we cannot perceive. Now that we know that and we can give Quranic examples. Human beings' knowledge is very limited. Our knowledge is very limited. Look at the Quran, Surah Al-Luqman. وَمَا تَدْرِ نَفْسٌ مَاذَا تَكْسِبُ غَدًا وَمَا تَدْرِ نَفْسٌ بِأَيِّ أَرْضٍ تَمُوتُ. Last verse of Surah Al-Luqman. No soul knows what they are going to earn tomorrow. No soul knows where they are going to die. Do you know what you are going to earn tomorrow? No. Do you know where you will die? No. Your knowledge is that limited. The verse we recited in Surah Al-Isra in the afternoon, وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا يُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِهِ وَلَكِنْ لَا تَفْقَهُونَ تَسْبِيحَهُمْ. Everything in this world does tasbih of Allah Azzawajal, but you cannot perceive the tasbih of Allah Azzawajal. You cannot. The mimbar is doing tasbih, the carpet is doing tasbih, the camera is doing tasbih, everything is doing tasbih. Can you tell? No. It is beyond your five senses. In the beautiful story of Yusuf alayhi salam and Yaqub alayhi salam, we find that when finally the reunion is going to take place between father and son, first Yusuf alayhi salam sends his shirt. He says, take my shirt, give it to my father. The verse is so beautiful. فَلَمَّا أَنْ جَاءَهُ الْبَشِيرُ أَلْقَاهُ عَلَى وَجْهِهِ فَارْتَدَّ بَصِيرًا. When the person who brings the good news comes, he puts the shirt of Yusuf on the face of Yaqub alayhi salam and his eyesight returns. How did that happen? We don't understand. We don't have the knowledge. Some people say, yes, now there is an Egyptian scholar, he says, I'm doing some experiments, how perspiration, how sweat can help the eyes. He says, maybe there was some perspiration on the shirt of Yusuf alayhi salam, and that is how the eyesight returned. We don't know. Allahu A'lam. Suffice it to say that there is a lot human beings don't know. There is a lot that is beyond our knowledge. And because of that, it is a test for us. You go for Hajj, there are many things you don't understand. You have to do in submission. But because human beings don't understand so many things, some unscrupulous people take advantage of the situation by claiming to know more, by misusing the lack of knowledge of human beings. A very famous story about one Maulana who comes one day and he's leading the salah, and as he's leading the salah, he starts saying shoo, shoo, shoo. He starts shooing something in the middle of salah. After the salah, somebody asked him, Maulana, in the middle of salah you are saying shoo. What do you mean shoo? What is this, some new kind of dua or something? What is this? The Maulana said that actually when I was in salah, my soul went near the Kaaba. And I saw that a dog was approaching the Kaaba. So I was telling the dog, shoo, 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 to chase the dog away from the Kaaba. Allahu Akbar. MashaAllah. Look at this Maulana. He is so close to Allah that when he prays, his heart and his soul goes near the Kaaba, he can see what is happening. So the men go home after their salah, and one man tells his wife, you know, today Maulana, he did an incredible thing. And he tells her the whole story. Now this woman is very clever. She says, why don't you invite him home? We'll see how good this Maulana is. And so they invite him home. Now when they invite him home, many others have been invited. And the wife of this man, she cooks biryani, chicken biryani. And for everybody, the plate is such, there is rice and a nice big piece of chicken on the top. But for the Maulana, she puts the chicken under the rice. First the chicken, then the rice. When the Maulana gets the plate, he looks, he says, where is my chicken? So the wife tells her husband, tell him, oh you Maulana who cannot see the chicken under the rice, how could you see the dog near the Kaaba? And so people, they make wrong use of lack of knowledge, you know, they try and make claims. And they try and manipulate people. At the time of Sheikh Nasiruddin Tusi, he was one of the advisors of Holako Khan. Holako Khan was the Mongol emperor. You know, at that time, in the beginning, the Mongols were not Muslim, but later they became Muslims. And one of the early Muslim Mongol emperors was Holako Khan. New Muslim, just accepted the religion, and he was very impressed with Nasiruddin Tusi, a Shia alim. And so he said, Nasiruddin Tusi, you are my religious advisor. You are with me at the top. And many of the other ulama, they were jealous of Nasiruddin Tusi. Now it so happened that one day Holako Khan's mother died. And so one of these ulama, he comes to Holako Khan, he says, now this is a good opportunity for me to do something about this Nasiruddin. He goes to Holako Khan and he tells him that when your mother goes in the grave, Munkar and Nakir will come to ask her questions. And the questions are going to be very difficult. I suggest you bury Nasiruddin Tusi with your mother, so if there are any difficult questions, he can help her to answer. So Holako Khan this is a good idea, my mother, poor old mother, let him go, he will help her to answer. Actually, he knew that if he's buried, he's going to die as well, isn't it? And so Holako Khan calls Nasiruddin Tusi, he says, my mother has passed away, this idea has come to me, I like the idea. Why don't you be buried? Nasiruddin Tusi, very clever man. He says, O king, one day you will also die. Why don't you save me for yourself? That alim who suggested it, you bury him with your mother. And so he buried that alim with his mother. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. This is what happens when people who are unscrupulous use and manipulate people using lack of knowledge about the unseen. They themselves also don't know about the unseen, but they use this as a means to manipulate. Here we are told, no, the test of Hajj is submission even if you don't understand. You have to follow the rules even if you don't understand. This is ubudiyyah. This is submission. Submission is something that comes without question. It does not mean that there is no hikmah, there is no wisdom behind all these rules. There is a wisdom. And when we die, we will learn these wisdoms. But while we are alive in this world, if we have been commanded to do these things, we go for Hajj, we have been commanded to pelt the stones, to wear ihram, follow all the rules and regulations, we do it with complete and utter submission. We pray to Allah Azzawajal to grant us the tawfiq to benefit from the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam in this blessed month, and to reform ourselves in the best way possible. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة.